So we're framing up this custom home I'm building in High Springs, Florida, and the house is about 3,400 square feet total. And it's a real country style home, which will fit in real well. We're building this house in River Rise subdivision in High Springs. There's a lot of other similarly styled homes in the neighborhood. And so what we're working on now is decking the roof. We've been working on this for the past 3 or 4 days. And, what we used on this house was 19/32 CDX plywood. And per the engineering, the minimum plywood thickness that we needed to use was 15/32. But, that's in the 130 mile an hour wind zone and exposure C. But, as the wind zones get higher and as the exposures get more extreme, the thickness of plywood, is required to be higher. So, by going with the 19/32 plywood, we're, definitely putting on a stronger roof that's going to hold the house together, in extreme weather circumstances. So that's something I started doing, about 6 months ago, was doing a minimum of 5/8 plywood on all my houses. And so that's what we're looking at here. And another main reason why I went with the plywood is we're doing metal roofing on this house. And so all the different metal roofing manufacturers have product approvals that tell you, what the roof sheathing needs to be that you're putting your metal roofing over the top of. And so most of the metal manufacturers require CDX plywood. So that's a main reason why we did that on this home. And so with the installation of the plywood, the main thing we're looking for is the nailing pattern. So here you can see the nailing pattern of the plywood, on the edge of the roof, into the subfascia, which holds together the entire perimeter of the roof. So this is very important. And then, we'll look at the plywood that falls within the body of the roof. So here we have, seams, on the edges of the plywood, and then also, every 2 feet trusses are ran. So there's going to be a lot of field nailing on the plywood, which, is the plywood space that's in between the edges. And so you're going to be looking for both of those. So a lot of engineers will call out a different nailing pattern for the edges of the plywood rather than the field. Usually you'll see 3 inches on the edges and then 12 inches in the field, or 3 inches on the edges and 6 inches in the field, or, really any combination, 4 inches and 8 inches. And so you'll check for that nailing pattern per the engineering. And, on a roof like this, it's pretty straightforward. You're not very likely to miss spots with nails. It's not a very cut up, complicated roof. So it's a pretty easy roof to inspect for nails. And something else to look for at this stage are make sure you have all your H-clips in place. And H-clips are those little metal pieces on the horizontal joints of the plywood. These are to keep the plywood level. So the vertical seams will always land on a truss. So it's very easy to keep the plywood level there. But, on the horizontal seam, that's not the case. So you put these little H-clips in and make sure to keep the plywood level. And something I get asked about all the time by my clients, when we're building their house is, what is that gap at the ridge of the roof? And so what that is, that's where the ridge vent's going to go. And so, the state of Florida is going to have venting requirements, unless you do an unvented attic, with spray foam insulation. The majority of homes in the state of Florida are going to be vented. So what you do is you put vents in your soffit, and that acts as an intake to bring, fresh air in, and then your hot attic air is pushed out of this ridge vent. And we put that ridge vent in when we do the metal roofing system. So, definitely a vital part of the structure. And so, we're looking at, passing this inspection, drying in the house, and then moving forward with trades next week.